100 stones. Will you stop that infernal racket? Was how Jacques-Paul Marat greeted the sound coming down from the second-floor common room. Jacques waited a second with his head tilted towards the stairwell and then went back to eating biscuit and looking blindly out the window next to the table. Now biscuit, for those who do not know, was a special type of bread of Jacques' design. He had taken the army recipe for hardtack and added a special ingredient, sawdust. Now this extended the life expectancy for biscuit to twice that of regular hardtack. It also meant his cook needed to come in less often, with the obvious end result of saving him money. A moment later the noise reappeared. Jacques stood up and some crumbs of biscuit fell off his stomach. The stomach, due to its size, had acted as some sort of bridge between him and the table itself. He rushed to the stairwell and yelled, "Will you stop playing that instrument at once? I have a very important meeting this morning and I need all my wits about me." "But uncle." "Now daughter. You know, since your parents died, I have become your guardian and as such wish you to call me father." "Yes, uncle, I mean father. You said I could practice my instrument after 10 in the morning." "After 10 in the morning?" He looked at his pocket watch that he had in his front right vest pocket. He ran out of the small house to the curb, throwing his overcoat on as he went. A coach was waiting for him. "How could you not tell me how late I was? Now quick, to my office, and stop for nothing. There's an extra franc in it at the end of the month if you can get me there in 10 minutes. Jacques entered the coach and the coachman cracked the whip and the coach lunged forward. Jacques smiled after a few minutes. He would still be able to make it to his office before the meeting and, of course, would find a way to deduct a franc from his coachman's wages before he was due to pay him again. Then, all of a sudden, the coach shook and a splash crashed forth. The coachman slowed down. "I told you 10 minutes and you get that franc, now off." "But sir, I fear we have ruined a young woman's dress when we hit that puddle." Jacques looked out the window and saw a young woman in a white dress with mud all over it standing next to an older man in the middle of the street. We ruined a young girl's dress? More like you. Now move. I do not have the time for this." The coach again started off and Jacques looked square at the older man's face and wrinkled his nose and squinted, and the older man stood with his mouth agape. Moments later Jacques arrived at his office with time to spare. He entered and sat at his desk. He had his ledgers in pristine order on his right side, his ink wells filled at the top without an ink smudge on the exterior, and his plumes without a drop of dried ink just to the left of that. It was so, not from lack of use, rather from meticulous attention to cleanliness, that kept these objects in their present state. His files were kept behind him to the right and 2 solid wooden chairs were positioned opposite his, for guests as he chose to call them. Some moments had passed and he pulled out his pocket watch. His possible new client Claude was late. Claude had just bought a factory in town and was moving here and wanted a local man to handle his finances. Jacques' fingers rolled across his desk. Then the door opened. Jacques jumped up and was about to unleash a tirade when he noticed the man and the woman in front of him. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what my coachman did to you this morning." It was none other than the old man and the young woman who they had splashed that morning, and realized that the old man was indeed Claude. "I would say you should be sorry. I cannot help but think the only reason you're sorry is because you want to handle my money. It is really not so. Is there anything I can do to make this right?" Claude thought for a second and said, "The dress cost me 12 francs. Jacques' mouth dropped. "Anything besides the 12 francs? Claude answered with the first thing that came to his head, I guess you could walk 100 rocks from your house to my house one at a time until all have been delivered." "And where is your house?" "About 1 full day's walk east of your house on the main road." "And would it necessarily have to be me, or could it be, say, my daughter?" "I guess your daughter would suffice." "Will she then be able to stay at your house on the nights when she has taken you a rock?" "I would certainly not turn her out in the middle of the night when she was alone." "And if she does this, then we are all settled?" Yes, if your daughter does this, then I would consider this matter closed. You will put this in writing? If you insist, Jacques slowly nodded, then yes, I will put it in writing. Jacques pulls out a piece of paper and dabs a plume into the ink and speaks as he writes: Jacques-Paul Moreau's niece, Raquel Catherine Moreau, shall walk 100 rocks, provided by Claude Bonfort, one at a time, from Jacques-Paul Moreau's present house at the corner of Main Street to Claude Bonfort's house approximately 1 day's walk east of the starting house on Main Street. What is more, on the nights that Raquel Catherine Moreau delivers a rock to Claude Bonfort house, Claude Bonfort shall provide a bed for Raquel Catherine Moreau to sleep in. I, Claude Bonfort, do swear that upon the completion of the above stated task by Raquel Catherine Moreau, that her uncle shall be absolved of any liabilities due to the accident that ruined a white dress on this date, the 25th of June in the year of our Lord 1825. At this point both Claude and Jacques signed the document. I shall bring a bowl and 100 rocks over tonight. Now that is over, let us get down to business. Do you honestly think after what you did this morning and what you just have done to your niece to save 12 francs that I would do business with you? Claude's face, after exerting all his control, finally grew red. Honestly, if you cannot appreciate that I have saved myself 12 francs, then I would prefer you not be my client anyway. Now please leave and let me get back to work. Claude grabbed the young woman and went out of the office and muttered to himself. The rest of the day Jacques had a slight smile upon his face and repeated to himself, and I did not have to pay the 12 francs. On arriving home Jacques called out, Daughter, come to me. Raquel walked down the stairs with head held down. Yes, father? I have need of you to deliver 100 rocks to a Claude Bonfort's house by foot, 1 rock at a time. It should take you a day there and a day back. He will billet you at his house at night on the days you travel there. But uncle, father, you said I could audition for the Conservatoire de Paris in 2 weeks. She looked up with eyes fully opened. It will be my only opportunity. Yes. Yes, I did, and now I am saying you cannot. Raquel opened her mouth and Jacques burrowed his brow, and Raquel bowed her head, said, Good night, father, and headed back upstairs. The next morning she rose up early and made her way downstairs. On the table near the door sat a bowl with 100 rocks, and she picked one out, and next to it sat a small bag with a note on it. Here is some biscuit for your travel, because it would not do for you to starve to death on your trip. She looked in the bag and there were 2 of his biscuits. She picked up the bag and went off without further delay. At noon she opened the bag and took out a biscuit and took a bite. It crumbled in her hand and she spit out what had made it to her mouth. She dropped the other biscuit and went on without it, thinking hunger better than the taste. The sun was setting when she made it to the Bonfort's house. She knocked on the door and a servant opened it. Ah, mademoiselle, wait here for a moment. My master said for me to get him if and when you arrived. The servant exited and a second later she heard the scuffling of shoes. He actually made you do it? He fully intends on making you carry it out? It was an old man with gray hair. His cheeks were quite flushed and he paused for a second. Forgive me, where are my manners? My name is Claude Bonfort. My name is Raquel. She curtsied and then held out her hand face up with the rock in it. He nodded in return. Please, put that in a bowl next to the door. There was an empty bowl on her right. Now girl, you look white. He just fully recovered from his run and could only now see what was before him. Her dress was completely covered with dust, her face covered in sweat, and her eyes held a vacant look. Have you had anything to eat? Not much, sir. Henri, quick, some water and some sandwiches. Claude ran to the back and came back with a tray. Will this do? Raquel saw before her cold ham sandwiches with a pitcher of water and she readily nodded and took one. You would not mind me having one with you, would you? You see, I have been busy all day and have not eaten since breakfast. She looked up from her sandwich and shook her head. After a second he spoke again. You must think me completely uncivilized with eating sandwiches and drinking plain water, and how I referred to my servants. You see, we generally do not stand on protocol around here. I generally find most of that kind of stuff a bunch of hooey. I hope you can understand that and not judge me too harshly. She looked up again and saw a great smile on the old man's face, and though she tried not to, she smiled back. Now are you done? Do you have anything to wear tonight, or tomorrow morning? She replied no on both accounts. I see. I thought this might happen with your uncle, so I had a room made up and put some of my daughter's clothes in it. I think you are about the same size. Your daughter, sir? Yes, she and my wife are away visiting her cousins. I would be there too, except I need to be near the factory since I just bought it. Come, let me show you to your room. They went up a staircase and passed 2 doors and opened the third. I'll get you up early in the morning and we can breakfast together before you go back home. Do you mind getting up with the sun? Raquel shook her head no, and he said, good night then, and get some sleep, you'll have another long day tomorrow. The next morning as the sun came in there was a knocking on her door. Raquel, wake up, breakfast will be ready in about 15 minutes. Raquel woke on the first knock on the door and dressed as fast as she could. When she made it to the table, Claude was sitting smiling. So how did you sleep last night? Well enough, sir. The rest of the meal went quickly, and then, sir, I need to start back now. Yes, of course. There came a knock at the door. Henri entered. Monsieur Gillard to see you. Ah, yes. Good morning, Pierre. Are you ready for another day at the factory? Yes, Monsieur Bonfort. Come, you know I like to be called Claude. Now I have nothing for you this morning, but could you escort Mademoiselle Raquel as far as the factory? The old man turned his attention from the young man to the lady and said, I know you can make it all the way home just fine, but I would feel better if you were escorted for a little bit of the way. Besides, Pierre has to go to the factory anyway, so there is no reason you shouldn't go together. Raquel nodded and the two set off, Raquel taking some traveling food prepared by Claude. Raquel looked at the bowl with 1 rock in it and thought. Just 99 more, but by then it would be too late. Her shoulders slumped a little bit. A few steps out of the door, Pierre looked over at Raquel. I guess proper introductions are in order. I, as you just heard, am Pierre Gillard. Raquel nodded and said softly, and I'm Raquel Moreau, and continued to look forward. You might be wondering why I was at Claude's house this morning. I have a new job at the factory and Claude would like me to stop in and see if he wants anything special done before I go into work. Raquel nodded politely. Pierre waited a second before continuing. Do you see those birds over there? He pointed to the forest a little bit off the road and she looked. I see them singing every morning. When I feel down or lonely I see them and I think I am not alone, for they are looking after me, they are singing to me, and then I feel better. The small factory was reached and Pierre said, It is here I must leave you. Take care of yourself, I'm sure I'll see you again. Raquel walked home. In the morning she set out with another rock and a bag of 2 biscuits. When she passed the small factory she heard a voice. Raquel, wait for me. She turned around and saw Pierre running from the factory. I have to go speak with Claude and thought we could walk together. Do you mind? She said that she did not mind, and the two walked and Pierre talked their way to Bonfort's house. When they arrived, Raquel placed her rock in the bowl and Claude said, I see you walked together here tonight. And he smiled. Claude invited Pierre to dinner with them and they had quite the enjoyable evening. When it was time for bed, Pierre excused himself and went home. Claude and Raquel went to sleep, and in the morning after breakfast Pierre walked Raquel to the factory before leaving her to the rest of the trip. This routine was followed for the next few weeks, Pierre walking with Raquel every other day in the morning to the factory from Claude's house and every other night from the factory to Claude's house. Raquel slowly became more talkative when one evening while walking to Claude's she said nothing at all again. Forgive me, Raquel. This may be too personal a question, but what is wrong? When I first met you, you were so sad, and I slowly saw you become happier over time that I had thought that whatever was troubling you was over, but today I see it has reoccurred. What is the problem? Today I was supposed to audition for the Conservatoire de Paris. She then went on to tell the whole story about her parents dying and how she came to live with her uncle and the incident of the dress and how she now has to walk 100 rocks to Claude's house to repay the debt. I can see why you would be sad. They walked the rest of the way in silence. The next 2 weeks passed. Pierre tried every trick imaginable to raise Raquel's spirits, and Raquel tried to put it behind her but without success. One morning at Claude's, Pierre did not come. "No, my dear, I don't think Pierre will be coming this morning," Claude said. Raquel sighed a great sigh and walked towards her home. Claude noticed this but could do nothing. Raquel looked at the forest and saw the birds that Pierre had talked about the first time she met him. They were singing to her and looking after her, but somehow that made her feel more alone. When she arrived home, there sat her uncle, Claude, Pierre, and a stranger she had not met before. "No, no, no, that cannot be true," said her uncle. "Yes, I'm afraid it is," and everyone noticed that Raquel entered the room. "And you can ask her yourself," spoke Claude. "My daughter, Pierre says that he is in love with you, and Claude states that you return that love. Tell me, is that true? If you would have asked me yesterday, I would not have known, but today I can say unequivocally yes. That cannot be. He is just a poor boy, almost a beggar. He is not anymore, he is my second at the factory. I think they should be married if they would like to in time. Would you?" "Yes. Yes. Listen, I'm still her guardian and I say no to this marriage, to everything." "And you will not budge from this?" "No. I am sorry it must come to this. This gentleman is Guy Basile, my friend and my lawyer." The stranger steps forward and bows. "Yes, I was asked to look into a particular case about a young girl, Raquel Catherine Moreau, whose parents had died and now was living with her uncle Jacques-Paul Moreau. I have actually found the will left by her parents, and there are primarily 2 provisions that must be met by her uncle guardian. The first is that she must be given adequate amount of food to provide sustenance. The second is that she, provided she have the aptitude for, be allowed to audition and go to the Conservatoire de Paris. In the second case, Jacques-Paul Moreau can only be found derelict in his duties as legal guardian because he has allowed her to miss her one opportunity to audition to go to the Conservatoire de Paris. As such, I'll assume that Claude shall bring suit as such, removing your guardianship." "Ha, who would look after her?" "Why, I would until she reaches an age to marry Pierre if they still want to," responded Claude. "Just go. And here is the paltry sum her parents left to her. I would gladly pay twice that amount to never see any of you again. Goodbye." With that, Claude, Pierre, Guy, and Raquel left Jacques' poor, miserable house. Raquel settled into her new home. A month later, Guy was able to arrange a new audition to the Conservatoire de Paris when he told them why she had not been able to be at her original one. She was accepted and attended for 2 years. On graduating from the Conservatoire, she married Pierre, who had by this time taken over managing Claude's business so he could spend more time with his wife and at that time 1 grandchild.